Help us understand the 2,000 years of experience, passed down, recorded, of how demons work.
Well, it looks like today we're going to be talking all about demons. Hello everyone, I'm Professor Plink. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. Before we get back to today's video, shout out to my most recent super thankers, Cynthia McDonald, Piao Meow Noir, Long-Haired Lefty, and Dwayne Young. Thank you all very much for your generosity. You are the rational relish on my logical footlong, and for the purposes of this video, the satanic sprinkles on my demonic donut. Thank you for your support of my channel and helping me to do what I do. Now, back to the demons.
Whoa! Yo! I got demons running all through me!
As of this recording, I am just days away from my annual trip to Comic-Con, where I will have the opportunity to meet and get my photo with Mark Sheppard and John Glover, two amazing actors who have been part of some of my favorite shows, and interestingly enough, have both played badass devils in awesome television shows. So I thought it would be a good chance to delve into the realm of the dark side of Christian mumbo-jumbo. Today we're looking at a channel called Q Ideas and an interview with Adam Bly, who's going to tell us all about how these beings that cannot be seen, heard, touched, tasted, smelled, or detected in any measurable way, but still totally and truly exist, actually operate. So let's give them a listen and find out how to protect ourselves from the evil forces of darkness.
Talk to us about how demons right now, for every one of us in this room, are trying to work or get at us.
Right. So I want to pass on some nuggets that are hopefully useful to you. Number one, the spiritual world's very legalistic. Demons are bound by the rules of God. They have to operate within those rules.
We're lawyers.
I guess it's good to know that demons, the most vile and vicious creatures in existence, who mock and scoff at God and anything supposedly righteous and holy, will absolutely abide by the specific and clear rules laid out to them by the very being that they so revile. I mean, what exactly is the punishment going to be if they break these rules that God has laid out for them? What, they get thrown into hell? Whoops, too late.
Their normal activity is temptation. They're allowed to do that to us our entire lives. That's what they're allowed to do. God has them all on a leash, and he lets the leash go enough to let them tempt us because that's what makes us spiritually stronger. It's through being challenged and struggling that we gain spiritual strength.
Ah yes, the all-loving, all-good, all-the-time God is giving demons free rein to tempt us into sin, and eventually, if they're successful enough, ultimate damnation. And God, of course, being all-knowing of exactly what will happen in the future, knows that some of humanity will fall to this temptation by these demons and wind up in hell for all eternity. And yet, he still allows this to go on. He still allows the demons off of their leash enough to enact their machinations that will lead some of us into eternal hellfire. Well, I guess God goes by the idea that you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Yeah, sure. A statistically significant number of his children are going to fall prey to these demonic temptations and wind up damned for all eternity. But hey, the ones who don't will be all the stronger for it. And that's what really matters. I mean, even though God is supposedly all-powerful and is the creator of all of us, meaning he could just create us spiritually strong from the start so that we wouldn't need to strengthen ourselves through demonic temptations, thereby eliminating the need for those demons, and then he wouldn't have needed to create them in the first place, and no one would end up going to hell. Yeah, but all that seems like a lot of work, I suppose. Better to just let a good portion of his children burn for all eternity. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? This is seriously what you tell yourself justifies demons' existence and their actions against humanity? Also, I'm confused as to why we supposedly need demons, even if you think we need to face temptation in order to strengthen ourselves spiritually. I mean, aren't we naturally tempted by things here in our world that aren't demonic? Isn't sin supposed to be inherent to our natures as a result of the fall? I mean, the Bible even says as much, like in Galatians 5:17, where it says, "For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other, to keep you from doing the things you want to do." Or then in Ephesians 2:3, "Among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind." We are tempted by the nature of our flesh, the desires of our bodies and mind, the lust, the wrath, the greed, all of it. We don't need demons for it. It's supposedly inherent to our nature as humans. So throwing demons into the mix just turns the temptation that we already have in spades in this world all the way up to 11. And for what? To make sure that heaven doesn't get too crowded, I suppose? Keep the VIP section of heaven nice and sparse? Wouldn't want to be getting too noisy up there, I suppose. I mean, give me a break. Trying to blame natural human tendencies and desires that are personally and socially harmful on invisible malevolent spirits from hell is just a way of saying, it's not my fault for that incident with the altar boy. It was the demons that made me do it.
The extraordinary activity is the stuff you see in the movies: infestation, oppression, and possession.
Which brings us to the 3 stages of demonic activity: infestation, oppression, and possession.
He's not allowed to do that, and it's not a he, it's a spirit, right?
Oh, really? I thought demons were cycloptic pink tribbles wearing finely tailored suits. Oh, well, isn't that egg on my face?
The demon's not allowed to do those things unless we invite him into our lives to do those things. So somebody with valid authority has to tell the demon, I invite you into my life in this extraordinary way, before he can do it. His hands are tied.
What kind of sense does that make? The people who are often thought by religious officials to be demon-possessed tend to be highly religious people in the first place. All of the most famous historical cases of exorcisms performed certainly fall that way. Like Roland Doe, whom the film The Exorcist was based on, was a Lutheran from a religious family. Or Anneliese Michel, who had 67 different exorcisms performed on her, was a devout Roman Catholic. The people who seem to be housing for wayward demons seem to also be the least likely people to, in any way, invite demons into themselves for possession. I mean, we aren't talking about giving in to the run-of-the-mill temptation here. We aren't talking about eating meat on Fridays or playing a little hide-the-zucchini with the neighbor, that's going to get one demon-possessed. But it requires a full-on invitation to the demonic. A total, hey Pazuzu, if you're not busy this weekend, how about making me a meat puppet and damning my soul? What person of faith is going to do something like that? And the people who might actually do that, because they don't believe in such nonsense, like non-believers, never seem to get possessed. Funny how that works, isn't it? Almost like supposed demonic possession is actually various mental conditions that need serious psychological treatment, and supposed spiritual cleansings won't solve the problem. Which is why the aforementioned case of Anneliese Michel took 67 exorcisms, which none of them worked, and ultimately resulted in her death.
That's either you, if it's your body. You, if it's your child that's not of the age of reason, you have the authority to baptize them. You also have the authority to curse them, because you just have parental authority. Some parents misuse that. Could be an ancestor, sins of the fathers to the 4th and 5th generation, right? So sometimes we see like a curse in the family that came from an ancestor who was doing really bad things.
Oh, so your parents can be total shitheads and give your body and, in effect, your soul over to demons. Well, isn't that just awesome sauce? Or not just your parents, but your great, however many greats you want to add to the list, grandparents can bequeath you to demons? Yet another total screw you humans in the rules established and maintained by a supposed just and loving God. You can be a totally awesome and devout person, practically angelic in your devotion to God, almost Christ-like in being near sinless all the days of your life. But if you had a 10 generations removed grandfather who was a complete prick, who bargained away your spiritual autonomy to demons in return for a plow horse with a strong back to help bring in the crops, well, you are well and truly screwed. And I mean, this whole line of thinking goes against what it says in the Bible again. I mean, not that I particularly care what it says in your holy book, but you certainly do. And it says in Ezekiel 18:20, "The soul that sinneth, it shall die. The son shall not bear the iniquity of the father, neither shall the father bear the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon him, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon him." But I guess this doesn't apply to letting demons run wild inside your children's bodies. I mean, after all, this is the same God that slaughtered the firstborn sons of Egypt because Pharaoh, who ruled over them, happened to be an asshole. Nothing like punishing children for the misdeeds of adults who have control over them. Oh, our God is an awesome God.
She said, I'll pray this for you, and touched the person and said these prayers, and it involves a direct command of begone Satan is in the prayers. As soon as she gave the direct command while touching, she felt something rush into her, and she's been possessed ever since. It's been over 15 years. So my hint is touch is a big deal in spiritual warfare. There's something very important about touch that God has established. Touch with prayer is a big deal.
Show us on the doll where the demon touched you. Was it good touch or bad touch? Was it touch like when you hug your friends, or the kind of touching that Father Flannery did in the rectory?
Father! This is not part of the ritual.
All jokes and inferences to rampant CSA aside, exorcism has historically been an abusive and destructive practice that is being and has been largely weeded out of modern society, being completely outlawed in some places, and where it is still practiced, it's become a shell of its former self. With reports of a rise in exorcisms in America being attributed to mass exorcisms of people engaging in political protests being exorcised in order to purge evil spirits from them. Because protesting for racial justice and toppling statues of religious figures who perpetrated cultural genocide against a native populace could only be motivated by demonic possession, I suppose. I mean, is it getting to the point where it's a publicity stunt for the Catholic Church? Some of the supposed telltale signs that someone is demonically possessed are supposed to be things like using languages that are supposed to be unknown to the person, visual or auditory hallucinations, knowledge of events the subject couldn't possibly know, aversions to holy objects. What, were the political protesters chanting in Latin and burning when they touched the statue? Or were the religious officials who greenlit these mass exorcisms really just looking to grab a few headlines to put some more butts in the pews come Sunday morning?
My advice is ask Jesus to do it. Why? Ultimately, Jesus is doing it anyway.
Well, crap. Hope it's not a Jewish demon, or else that person's screwed. But of course, this entire line of thinking about demon possession and exorcism is all laden with BS that will leave a person screwed. From the dishonest nature of temptation, what comes from demons and what comes from the regular desires of the flesh and mind being totally undefined, to the unfair nature of invoking demons to enter a person being allowed by family members, perhaps even those long dead before you were even born, to the exorcism needed to remove these demons being exclusively Christian, thereby screwing over any non-Christian faithful, and the practice of exorcism itself being largely unhelpful and egregiously harmful. The whole thing stinks to high heaven.
Well, rancid smells could indicate some type of demonic activity.
Well, shit.
We're a missionary country in reverse. The wave of Christianity rolled into this country and established it. We're becoming less Christian and less religious, and the wave of Christianity is rolling back slowly.
No way. Yeah.
Holy shit, that's the best news I've ever heard.
Yes, it is absolutely true that religiosity in the United States is on the decline. And even though current downward trends are expected to increase as time goes on, even if those trends merely just stay at their current rates, those with no specific religious affiliation will take the majority status in the country by 2070. Then I guess we will just be overrun with demons and misery and murder and mayhem, just like all those countries that have high populations of non-believers. Oh, yeah, right. I keep forgetting about that. Boy, it really sucks when all of the evidence stands against you, doesn't it, Adam?
In the history of the church of 2,000 years, you see a flurry of exorcisms when Christianity first entered cultures. We're seeing that flurry come back because the wave is rolling back, and we're choosing to abandon that understanding. We abandon that understanding, we fill the void with something. Our children have an innate need for spiritual experiences. It's built into us as humans. When we don't have it from our institutionalized religion, we're going to seek it out in the occult, we're going to seek it out in ghost hunting, we're going to seek it out in Gnosticism, we're going to seek it out in Eastern traditions that we don't understand. The kids are going to find it somehow.
I don't know that I agree that people, young or old, have an innate need for spiritual experiences. I think people have an innate desire to explore, to seek answers and knowledge about that which we do not already know about. And when they're raised in a culture that inundates them with ideas of the supernatural and spirituality, from the prevalence of religions that advocate it, to movies and television shows that showcase it, to campfire stories and games and novels and toys and songs and holidays, all that venerate the existence of the spiritual, of course people are going to want to explore the idea of it. You can't soak a cucumber in brine and then be surprised when it turns into a pickle. But that doesn't mean that the brine was an innate need for the cucumber. Similarly, you can't soak a person in a culture steeped in the ideas of mysticism and be surprised when they develop an interest in exploring the notions of the spiritual. But that doesn't mean that they had an innate need for it.
They're going to look for it, and what they're going to find is the devil, because he's waiting there to feed them whatever line he wants to feed them.
So, ghost hunters, you're going to get possessed by the devil. Practitioners of yoga, you're going to get possessed by the devil. If you buy a deck of tarot cards or get a pentagram keychain, possessed by the devil. Is this guy serious? Well, the sad thing is that, yes, he absolutely believes this nonsense. And at the end of the day, none of Adam's talking points give any real indication that demonic possession is even real. That exorcism is in any way an effective means of treating people who have real mental conditions, or an even larger point, that the supernatural even exists. So you'll excuse me, Adam, if I call BS on this whole matter. Get back to me when you've got some proof of demonic possession, and then we can talk. And so that is where we'll close things off for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when a new video comes out. Until next time, I'm Professor Plink, reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.